ESG plus DIE equals tragedy. Okay, let me unpack what I mean. If you've been watching the images coming out of Maui and Lanai, you are seeing a catastrophic disaster. I've been to that part of the world and it's beautiful. Well, at least it was beautiful. And it's been razed to the ground. Why? What happened here? In a modern world, how could something have gotten so out of control? Well, I'm going to point to those two things: ESG, environmental social governance, and DIE, diversity, inclusion, equity. When you listen to the people that were in charge, the people that were in charge of the various emergency responses or services, or heads of various areas related to infrastructure in Maui and Lanai, this is all you hear. You hear talk about how things have to be equitable, how things have to be diverse, and how all of these things are interrelated and how that's the most important criteria. The gentleman who was in charge of the water, so to speak, he basically saw the water as a outcropping of a pagan god. It had spirituality, and he talked about water in terms of what was equity and fair, and how it should be shared, and how it was a resource that had to be distributed evenly. And and again, I'm not here to tell you that one group should have all the water, another group shouldn't. Of course, everybody needs water to drink, to function, and to all of those things. But apparently, his worship of water led to the point where the water was denied to the firefighters for up to 5 hours, while there was a negotiation or a discussion with farmers if they were willing to allow the water to be diverted and if it was fair to them or whatever else. I have no idea, but it's insanity. You've got a major fire breaking out and you're negotiating about water? That is poor leadership. Someone who makes decisions based on sound reasoning doesn't operate that way. This is what we're seeing. And there's the other officials that were involved in the emergency response, or people that had to take various actions. Again, would all appear that most of them were not competent, and they were hired based on some quota that had to be fulfilled. We're seeing a lot of that these days. We're seeing people who are not competent for the positions they have simply get them because there is a quota to be fulfilled. Now, think about it in practical terms. If you were going to the hospital and you had to have open heart surgery, do you want the best surgeon? Well, come on. Does it matter to you if it's a woman, a man, or if it's someone who is from Chile or from India? I don't care. I want the best individual. I don't want somebody who worries about diversity, inclusion, and equity. I want somebody who's skillful with a scalpel and can do the job that's necessary. If I'm boarding a plane, I want the most competent pilot. I don't want the most useless one who got in simply because of a quota. That is insanity. And when we start running the world that way, we find it has dire consequences. The company that was responsible for the electrical grid and stuff in Maui and Lanai, apparently, as I understand it so far, the bulk of the money they spent was environmental social governance, about worrying about creating alternative energy sources, not dealing with the invasive wild grasses that were cropping up all around their power lines and stuff that were basically elements for starting a fire. And electrical wires and stuff have sparks occasionally that go off, and this would have done it. They spent a mere pittance on clearing area around their power lines versus about this environmental alternative green model. Again, it seems pretty insane that you don't do the basics and you're not doing what's necessary. And when everything goes wrong, what does the governor do? He blames it on climate change. Well, that must be what it is. I mean, climate change must control the response where somebody withholds water for 5 hours. I mean, I'm sure that's climate change. Why is it that we don't apply this insanity to other areas? Even simple things like our visceral, enjoyment of sports. I have not seen in the NBA, for example, diversity, inclusion, and equity. I don't see it. I do not see a sport that is representative of, let's say, for example, the NBA is American. All cultures are not represented in the NBA. It's dominated by black men. Why? Well, because they're the best athletes. And for some reason, fans don't want to watch a sport where people are basically not entertaining or not very good at what they do. Now, that seems kind of bizarre, that this is what we have as a minimum standard for our sports. And yet when it comes to areas of our life, such as our health, our welfare, our military, everything that basically we need to function in day-to-day living, that we accept uselessness. We accept turds being in those positions who shouldn't be there simply because they fulfill a quota. If you're one of those people who support that and you love sports, give your head a shake. Is there even a freaking connection between the two? When you hire, instead of the brightest and the best, the worst and the most useless, it is not a surprise when disaster results, because you have people that are way over their heads and cannot manage what the positions they're in. This is indicative of so many areas right now where we're hiring or we're putting into place people that are simply fulfilling a quota, have no competence, and when this happens, folks, it has real world tragic implications, as we're seeing in Maui. Anyway, I welcome your comments and thoughts. Please feel free to chime in. As always, you can follow me on my Twitter. I'm at Camera612. Subscribe to my Rumble on my Locals channel, and I will see you next time.